So as you can see, I'm from Red Hat, and um, let's elaborate a bit or show you what we at Red Hat we're doing to keep your journey by AI. I think everybody is still learning and discovering new things. There are new things coming up every day. I actually will talk about something that just was hot off the press yesterday, so I had to change my presentation accordingly. Just to make sure that you are running your AI workloads in a real safe way, and also to try to achieve your goals, because in the end, we want to deliver some business value. Although I think this journey itself is already very satisfying, but in the end, we want to meet some customer requirements. Just coming back to the original reason Europe Mobile has made this call is I think it's in every kind of digital transformation project, which actually AI is there is a huge chance that projects are failing. I think in the end, I think in the past somebody was said that 70% of digital transformations projects are failing. So in the AI world, it seems to be quite relaxed. We only have 30%, 40% of project failure diagnostic. There's a lot of cancellation of because of costs. We will see how we, from my head, will try to address this, and also unclear business value. As I said, everybody is still trying to figure out what are the business cases, where can we use actually AI in an efficient way. And sometimes also we have to talk about, of course, about risk control. So I think everybody who has played with the public AI hosted services has seen that his bill has skyrocketed, and he's asking himself, why is that? So if you just look at the guide adoption timeline that was predicted is we will have in 2028 around 33% of enterprise applications that are intelligent. So we have some AI built in there, and around 15% of the decisions are made in an automated way. I think I always say it's trust but verify. So there's this reinforcement learning, human in the loop technologies and techniques to prevent. I don't think that somebody wants to have the network reconfigured in a way that the routing is not working anymore because AI made a wrong decision. In the end, AI is a statistic probability method, yeah, so the outcomes are also quite sometimes not very predictable, so it's always good to have a closer look on that. And then in 2029, we have 70% of the enterprise are deploying agentic AI. Maybe that may differ between different industries. And if you're looking at the software market, I'm a software guy, so I'm a software developer. There's a lot of talks about how much AI is used today in actually developing software, not only for other automation purposes, for example, that the AI market will around be $450 billion dollars. So that's quite a big market share to grab, of course. Then we were talking about AI milestones and moonshots. I think it's worth to look at it from the telco perspective. What are these milestones that we want to actually reach using AI? So it's not only the classical new kids of the block like Gen AI that we're talking about, but also predictive AI, which is more predictive maintenance, all the old kind of AI that was implemented in the past already. We want to have anomaly detection in our network. So is there service disruption? Do we need to do beamforming, for example, to enhance signals towards telco customers and devices, if that is maybe an issue? What we see most of the touch points that customers are interacting with now are today are chatbots. I have made my own experience with the quality of that one when I was trying to reset my connection, but then it turned out I thought it was a DSL customer, but already was on fiber to the home, so that didn't really help. Then we have network inventory management. Of course, we have to somehow optimize what we have in stock already and are using in a more efficient way, especially if it comes what is driving the cost of telco, which is usually power consumption. And I think what nowadays is also more and more important is to run things in a safe way. I will come to back to that point, especially what we're doing as Red Hat in that area. And of course, everybody dreams to have this launch control where everything is done automatically. When we're talking about AI run, for example, where we have a fully autonomous network. And when if you're looking at the OSSB side of things, that we are thinking about general intelligence to use to drive customer satisfaction, for example. So it's just so if we want to drive those four use cases that we're seeing in the uh, realistically milestones, we as Red Hat are of opinion that to drive these use cases, you need to have a comprehensive platform. A comprehensive platform that includes a unified on-maps framework. And it's also because nowadays we're also talking about hybrid cloud deployments. So it's on-premise deployments for more secure workloads that need to interact with maybe customers and sensitive data, but also maybe for other bursting models, we want to go into the public cloud. So we want to have a platform that is consistent and driven in the same way on-premise or in the cloud. We want to have secure model serving so that no data is exposed. There is no unauthorized access to the model itself. We have insights, tracing capabilities and logging capabilities inside the platform, where we can also have auditing on who's actually using our services. And then, of course, we want to drive collaboration. For example, data scientists, application owners, application developers, so they're using the same platform to retrain models, to have reinforcement learnings, to experiment with the models, and have also visibility which models are available, the versioning, and the quality of the models. That is what we think at Red Hat is the most important thing to be in mind, that you have a platform driven approach to drive your milestones. Maybe coming back a bit, why Red Hat is different in that area. There are many, many other vendors out there that are doing AI, but Red Hat is open source at the core. So many say Red Hat is an open source company. I have to correct it. Red Hat is an enterprise company that is using an open source development model. Why is that important? Because in the end, open source is not charity. Open source would be a very bad business model. So what we're doing at Red Hat is we are making money with free software by providing services to our customers. So we are securing, hardening, certificating the software and provide that as a service, as an assurance model to our customers. But the important thing is everything that we are developing is feeded back into the community. So we do not have a fork as such for the software. That is, there is no secret source in our software. Everybody could just build it on their own, of course, if they have the capacity to do so. I think this is especially important if you just look at the complexity and the amount of frameworks that are out there in the AI market. So what we are doing and are providing value is that we have the transparency and the trust. This is very important also when we're just looking at AI models. There are closed models, there are open weight models. We have to be sure that we are using the ones that are adequate for our use case. So we are seeing also, for example, that governments can just decide that public AI services have to be restricted. Yeah, that had just happened recently, or that some models are going closed source. So especially in Europe, when we are talking about sovereignty, we have to have a close look on that. Sometimes also the uses of models are restricted because they are not following European law, for example. It's just as easy as that. This is the sovereignty part. But what we're also seeing here that going, investing, and working together with the community is becoming more and more important if we're seeing what kind of issues we are trying to solve here. When we are coming to efficiency of the users of the platform, we have to make sure that the scheduling of workloads, AI workloads especially here, is done in a very efficient way. So they're maximizing the available capacity on our platform. So I will also talk about that in a second. There are many, many other open source frameworks available, for example, like Type, PyTorch, and Kubeflow, where you have to have a good standing in the community, be able to drive the roadmap and make sure that it fits customer needs. Same goes for kind of this de facto standard of inferencing or serving inferencing, which is VLM. So Red Hat made a big investment here, buying the company Neuromagic, which is the main contributor to this project. And we have also, of course, the KSAF technical part for actually serving those models. There are basically two approaches on how to maximize the investment that you have done, for example, on GPUs. One of them is what we call the GPU as a service. That means that you're effectively scaling and discovering the available GPU resources that you have available in your infrastructure and provide it as a resource pool to interesting applications and users. Of course, this needs to be done in an intelligent way. So when we are thinking about usually having these kind of huge infrastructure, that usually is driven by a Kubernetes type of cluster deployment. So we have Red Hat, and Red Hat, of course, we have a lot of standing in the Kubernetes community with the kind of de facto later OpenShift here. And what we are talking about, the Red Hat AI platform, is just another application that is running on top of it, and therefore, of course, inheriting a lot of its capabilities what comes to resilience and scaling, telemetry, observability, logging, and so on, and security, of course, as well. So when we're talking about dynamic slicing, there's an NVIDIA, of course, many know that is multi-instance GPU, for example, but there are also dynamic resource scheduling, other techniques that you can use to actually provide slices of the GPUs to partners that maybe do not need the full capacity of one GPU. You want to have maybe on-demand access. I mean, we're talking about Jupyter Lab environments. Somebody just needs to assign dynamic resources to this kind of notebook and then just run his scripts and then tear it down afterwards and give it away back to the resource pool. Now we have, on the other hand of side, we have, luckily, there's a kind of standard for accessing AI models, which is OpenAI. Of course, there are others. There's Gemini, Anthropic. They have their own endpoints. So luckily, VLM supports all of them. We have models as a service, which basically is a kind of API management specific to AI models. Usually, all AI models use a kind of API key to access, and we need to make sure that the AI models that are available in our infrastructure are discoverable and maintained and life cycles from the platform perspective, secured by, for example, OpenID Connect tokens, so that interested users can actually access those models and start using it in their intelligent apps. The important part here, of course, is that we need to have control here on visibility. We maybe want to also control external models, not only the models that we're providing in our platform, but maybe also Gemini, Anthropic, and other APIs which are actually based in the cloud. And we want to make sure that costs are not exploding here, and we want to maybe do token-based rate limiting to ensure that everybody has a fair share of those models, and we can do, for example, showback or chargeback to those users. Now let's talk a bit about why the slide is showing up. You heard maybe of Anthropic Mythos, which is a quite powerful model and unfortunately has been used in the past also to exploit security vulnerabilities, which would lead to some unfortunate security exposures of existing applications. The amount of time that it has taken to actually exploit a security vulnerability has really gone down from years to months to days, and actually it is kind of 4 hours now. When we are thinking in the telco area, usually we don't touch applications when there is no need for it. Unfortunately, in this kind of highly challenged environment, where AI is not only used for good, but unfortunately sometimes also for bad, we have to be prepared for these kind of scenarios and have to be much faster in the way we're patching our systems. This is why Red Hat has, together with IBM, decided to invest 5 billion and 20,000 engineers to work on this problem. Actually, we're also using human in the loop, for example, when we are doing code remediations to find out what kind of software has to be patched. So this is not the usual things that we're doing at Red Hat, for example, for Red Hat Enterprise Linux, OpenShift, and so on. We're talking about the ecosystem. So we're talking about vulnerabilities in Java and PyTorch and JavaScript, which are, as everybody maybe knows, are not very well maintained packages. Especially if you're looking at the Python ecosystem, there are many, many packages that are really heavily used, but maybe there's just one maintainer. So they will really have having issues patching all those security vulnerabilities. So one of the examples is LLM, for example, which is a quite popular framework to implement models as a service. This is just the left-hand side is a kind of a slab for telcos. So when we're looking at it, how long it actually does take to patch systems, it's usually quite a long time. So if we look at it, many customers are more like in the 45 to 90 days range to actually going to patch the system. So that if you're looking at a 4 hour window of exploits being already used actively, and then a 90 days windows to actually address those issues, I think everybody can see that there is a kind of a problem, and maybe we should also rethink in the way we're operating our systems, unfortunately. So what we are providing here uh, at Red Hat is, and this also is that we're doing AI-driven trials in the core architecture. We have human in the loop, I already mentioned. The scope is independent libraries, as I mentioned, for example, Java, Python, and Node.js, where we're providing to our customers hardened access to hardened repositories. And we also will be working together with our customers to implement patching pipelines to speed up the delivery of those patches into the applications and the infrastructure. And everything that we're doing, it is not in our DNA sake, but this is the way we're working. We are going to commit everything back to upstream, so there will nothing be left. Of course, there will be a lag of time when this is actually being seen in the upstream community. So now we're going back, not scaring everybody only, but also maybe providing some good news. When you're looking at public AI, and I think also Andy talked about, so we have also, of course, the option to run private AI models, especially on a AI platform as Red Hat OpenShift AI, which is a more cost-efficient way because you are more in control and the infrastructure that is used and how the scheduling is done, who has access to it. You have more visibility and statistics where you can see how the platform is actually performing, and as of course is more consistent with sovereignty and data and privacy security requirements when you are more in control in the infrastructure where those models are served. So when we are looking at the platform, and the most part that we have is most customers are looking at it, we have a lot of discussions with customers on this, is the so-called AI gateway. So the AI gateway is not only access to the OpenAI spec or access to a model, it's much more. So we have MCP or Agent 2 communications. I think Andy touched a bit about, we need to have safety guardrails. For example, that no profane language is used when interacting with chatbots or any injection attacks that are tried. So these are just preventing from the get-go. We need to have a role-based access control. We want to have maybe cost-based routing so that the most cost-effective or the most uh, best model is used for a specific use case, which of course is semantic routing. And we have to have inference time scheduling. I think I need to speed up a bit. Yeah? So we're almost at the end of the section. These are just more or less the areas that we're looking at, that we're addressing with an OpenShift AI-based AI gateway, where we're looking at governance lifecycle and security and data sovereignty capabilities, where we actually want to enable customers to move from experimental to hardened AI. And we also want to, of course, demonstrate centralized controls and, of course, also satisfy security requirements, for example, prompt injection. So while NVIDIA is one of the leading vendors of GPUs, we are also working with the ecosystem, for example, Intel and our friends from IBM, to also provide customers with alternative GPU models. As you can see here, all of them are actually using the same inference server, which is VLM here, and you can serve, of course, different models. So one of them is also interesting here from the coding perspective, which is not mentioned in the slide, but it's Minimax, for example. But we're also working with Mistral, which is the go-to, I would say, European model. And then, of course, we have also LLMD. LLMD is a distributed LLM where can do caching and routing. And of course, it's an open source community project, which Red Hat is heavily invested in. Of course, we have also to talk about agentic workflows. Here we are working closely with Meta on the freshly renamed OGX. Others know this as Llama Stack. As OGX is a new name. What's important is customers give choice then which kind of frameworks they want to use to implement those agentic AI workflows. My favorite, of course, is LangChain for Java, because I'm a Java guy, but you can also use other agentic frameworks here to implement your intelligent applications. But in the end, it's very important to know that also these kind of applications themselves can be deployed on the same platform and can make use, of course, of MCP gateways, safety guardrails, for example, here with Nebo and Garak. We have OpenRAG, for example, or AutoRAG. We have capabilities to transform documentations into formats that can actually be consumed by AI models using Doglang, for example. Also, we are spending quite a lot of time compressing models. So we did not talk about that, but optimizing, of course, means also the amount of memory, for example, that a model is using. There are different techniques, for example, to compress a model from a 16, usually the 16-bit model, to a 4-bit model, which then results in the 70% less memory usage. So that means you can actually host more models on the existing infrastructure. That is, of course, a big revenue driver. We have a broad model collection. Maybe you can just explore what we have here on Hugging Face. We are also doing a harness test to see actually what is the impact of the compression towards the performance of particular models. And you can also see that most of the time, maybe there's a trade-off of 1%, for example, for coding use cases. Then here is something I would like to share with from my colleagues. What are best practices and what the critical gotchas usually you are, from the Telco perspective, you should avoid. First of all, best practice is to measure the investment that you have done, implement intelligent routing instead of just putting more or throwing more hardware at the problem to maximize throughput. The same goes that you should do traffic aware tailoring to, for example, using caching or close caching to maximize the token throughput. And of course, using GPU as a service, you can also consolidate your infrastructure. So for example, by slicing and identifying which models can be put together on the same GPU. I will also share on a slide here also a project that we're doing for actually giving you some recommendations on how to achieve these kind of maximizing invest of the existing infrastructure. So for you, what we should avoid, of course, is hardware contention here, routing diagnosis, which means if there's routing deficiency, we should not just fix it by throwing again additional hardware at the problem, but rather investigate why that is happening. We also should avoid margin erosion, so that we should have a look what is the cost per inference metrics. So metrics is usually a good starting point, having educated guess. And also, I think even the I world, I think everybody knows that as soon as you can get a hand of a model, or you don't actually, then this could lead to shadow IT mitigation. So that means by providing this kind of platform where everybody has kind of democratized access, the temptation to go somewhere else to get those AI resources is lower. This is the tool I talked about. We call this project navigators. Not surprisingly, it's an MCP server that can be deployed on OpenShift to actually have a look on how you're using the AI platform in regards of AI and give you recommendations on how to maximize your invest. A few takeaways here just to sum it up. I think as a usual good advice is just to focus on the realistic AI milestones that you would like to achieve with the immediate payback. And you also should look at the deployment requirements that you have for your AI workloads, and of course then work on how to optimize the resource consumption. So we as well, we could recommend you to use a secure and comprehensive platform that can drive all your AI use cases. And we think that OpenShift AI is the right choice to do that. Of course, as for a vendor, I'm a bit opinionated on that. And of course, you should also implement control and governance tools to actually be able to measure and see who is using the platform and in what way. Last but not least, that was a lot of theoretical talking. If you want to get your hands dirty and play around with it, there's a GitHub repo that we would like to share where you can see several Telco use cases that have been implemented by my colleagues. And you can start looking at how we are thinking and are implementing those use cases using AI. With that, there are a lot of resources I would like to share with you where you can actually learn and try out our things. And I just want to say thanks. And if there are any open questions, just feel free.
If there are any questions, we'll forward them to you because I'm afraid we're running well behind time now. Thank you very much.